How are you? What a great evening, huh? They, I was really worried. It was one thing when I think Peter got up and he said, "Oh my gosh, I have to follow the radio voice." I had to follow those two JA women winners of the oratory prize. So, anyway, it's just a pleasure to be with you this evening. I am just so proud to be here. I'm delighted to be able to personally add my congratulations to the leaders who are joining the Business Laureates of BC Hall of Fame. The irony of any Hall of Fame is that people in it usually never aspired to be famous. Their focus was always on building and on creating. So, how do we build and create in the best way that we can today? Everything in business is about going forward. In creating this Hall of Fame, Junior Achievement of BC aimed to pay tribute to business heroes past and present, and also to inspire the future. I think about business today, and I think it's so important that we celebrate business, as you're doing here tonight. It seems that sometimes people are forgetting where our prosperity comes from. It comes from business people working together, working hard, small business, large business, all types of business. So I'm just delighted that you're here and we're celebrating what we do, working to build trust in business and to spread the word about what business contributes to our young people. The Business Laureates have made a lifetime of contributions to their organizations, industries, and communities. I know as you hear about them tonight, you'll be amazed as I was as I got to peel the onions of their lives and their wonderful contributions. It is worth celebrating, and I salute each of you for your legacies. It's also vital to hold up these individuals as role models for the people who are still coming up through our organizations and for our youth and those that are here tonight, and for all of us too. As part of being a leader is also being a continuous learner, and we can always learn from one another. As a major employer and as a company that's a staunch supporter of JA, GE understands that importance of nurturing the next generation of achievers. Today's CEO and other business leaders should always seek advice on how do we succeed, and tomorrow's leaders can benefit from those same lessons. So we need to take opportunities to mentor, to instill certain lessons in light of the environment in which we're operating. The fact is when we look out on the world, we're doing business now in about 140 countries. This is the world ever since the financial recession. The fact of the matter is it's become much more volatile. We expect it to stay that way, and it's more unpredictable than ever. In their 2014 global survey of 1,300 CEOs, PwC found that leaders are preoccupied with several external forces, namely technological advances, demographic changes, and global economic shifts. These trends aren't new, but what has changed is the very pace of change and the scale of the volatility that we're seeing. Consider, for instance, the challenge and opportunities of creating value from the breakneck speed breakthroughs in technology and innovation. That's creating and compelling new efficiencies and entirely new industries. The flow of ideas and information is faster than it's ever been before. 10 years ago, just 10 years ago, the world shared 500 million connected devices. By 2020, which isn't that far away, analysts foresee 50 billion such devices. 50 billion. The world will be totally connected. That's unprecedented change. At the same time, we're seeing a combination of dramatic growth in emerging markets. There's still tremendous opportunities in countries like Latin America, Southeast Asia, Africa, India, coupled with some declines in some of the more traditional developed markets. Whether they're individuals or other organizations, customers are evolving, though, in very different ways in these markets. Growth has become more local. Opportunities have become more local. We don't talk about South America anymore. We can't even talk about Brazil. We might have to differentiate Rio from Sao Paulo. There are often major variations market to market. We have to be on top of that. We have to know what's happening there if we want to seize those opportunities. That's true at home as well as abroad. The degree of public policy shifts and other government interventions all adds to the unpredictability in a way that we haven't seen before. All of these changes make it difficult for companies to determine where to focus, where to invest in growth. Given these realities, how do we drive the type of success that we're honoring tonight? And I suggest today that there are kind of two related qualities to navigate the way ahead. First, leaders who are comfortable making decisions and assessing risk in a really dynamic world under very ambiguous circumstances, enabling organizations to see opportunities. It's really critical. Work and be comfortable in ambiguity. The second one is this underpinning of innovation in every area, from what we make to how we work, how we think, to meet these dynamic market needs. My message to you is that in these times, call for a certain business culture and a very specific type of leadership. And by embracing these attributes and sharing their importance, we can help build a workforce that will aspire to Hall of Fame performance. I thought I'd just elaborate, peel the onion a little bit on those two ideas, and then let you get back onto your celebration tonight. Let's start with leadership. You know, the pillars of success change with different eras. Like the role models in the Hall of Fame, each generation must adapt. So when we look out at the 21st century leader, our JAs of the future, what does leadership look like? At GE, we spend a great deal of time investing, learning, understanding the changing demands of leadership, because we think it's so critical to get this right, because it's our people, it's our leaders that make all the difference in whether we accomplish what we wanted to or we don't. And so ultimately, our success in driving business growth, it's that effective leader who can make sound decisions. The right leaders make the difference. So I thought I would just take a few minutes to walk through with you a couple of the attributes that we view as critical for current and future leaders, the way we're thinking about it today, hopefully give you a little bit of food for thought before dinner. So let's start with this whole idea of customer focus, and really not only customer, but broadening that out to understanding the market, the externalities that are going on, listening and learning to serve the market faster and smarter. You have to stay close to the market to follow the dynamics, spot the trends, grasp this new web of stakeholders to consider and understand risk. I mean, just think of the amount of government intervention and intrusion we have in countries all over the world. It's unprecedented relative to where it was. And we can say it's not just Canada, it's not North America, it's in countries everywhere. The unpredictability of that, the need to stay close to that, to know which way it's going to move so that hopefully you can mitigate the risks that might come from things that you're not quite sure which way it's going to go, but you're ready to play ball regardless of which way. You know, our CEO, Jeff Immelt, he recently blogged about leadership traits. And high among them was this whole idea of a nose for risk and reward. Leaders in business, it's all about taking risk. But the key to understand is whether or not the risk is worth the reward. We see leaders a lot of times on both sides of this equation, too risky, too risk averse. In a very fluid environment, the ability to study the market, prioritize the risks that count, becomes really valuable. Leaders have to know what's worth fighting for and never fear the accountability of that fight. The next thing is, we talked about the external market, right? Understand the web of what's going on, is this whole idea of clear thinking. You know, there is so much information, right? This information overload. It's easy, really easy, to get distracted or simply to freeze. Leaders have to be able to cut through the clutter today and be comfortable with less specificity. I call it a figure-it-out world. I mean, we simply cannot articulate everything that's going to happen. So we have to know we have leaders who can figure it out, who can see the different moving parts, and you know that they have the capacity to deal with it. because you're not going to be able to prescribe every option that they might have to look at. Any leader has access to reams of critical data. The challenge is turning that information to knowledge that actually creates business opportunities. That means seeing through the noise to focus on the outcomes you want to achieve, not that everybody else is trying to put in front of you. And being able to articulate what matters to the team, help others understand the vision and how to decide in a chaotic environment. The team can equally get distracted. And if you don't have clarity of vision on the outcomes that you want to achieve, how does the team possibly see their way through the noise if you can't? So you can look at that noise as competing information or as a big crashing waves. And just this month, there was a leadership blog from Harvard Business School. And they noted that today's leaders must be adept at steering their companies through oceans that will never be serene again. Here's an eye-opening statistic from that very same column, and this is incredible. More than half the companies that were industry leaders in the 1950s were still industry leaders in the 1990s. Now fast forward. Over two-thirds of the 1990s market leaders no longer even exist. How do you sail through turbulence? You sail through turbulence by charting a path and having that vision of where you want to go. You take what information you have and you connect the dots. And as I said, you accept that you have to work in ambiguity a lot of the time. A little story, when I was interviewing for this role 10 years ago, the fellow flew over from Europe, and they were starting a new international, and they wanted a new approach. And so Nani Bakali, he came to Canada. We met at the airport. It was supposed to be a half-hour meeting. 2.5 hours later, he leaves. We had a great discussion, and I write that letter, the thank you letter. Dear Mr. Bakali, thank you very much for taking the time to meet with me, blah, blah, blah. I said, I am totally comfortable with the complete ambiguity of the job you attempted to describe. It's the truth. You have to be able to deal with the fact that the pieces aren't all going to be there. Steve Jobs, in a famous commencement address, he talked about this. And in fact, he said that you can't always connect the dots when you look forward. You can only sometimes connect them looking backwards. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect. And he said that believing that will give you the confidence to follow your heart, even when it leads off the well-worn path. And that will make all the difference. And that takes courage. And that's the next essential 21st century leadership trait I want to talk to you about. The ability to find your voice and step out of your comfort zone. And I'll add, given the comments that we heard from, I think it was Wendy, I think Alina, sometimes you have to do that by being quiet. So a voice doesn't always mean you're loud, but by finding your voice and stepping out of your comfort zone. The best leaders need to contribute well beyond their silo, to see the big picture and have the facts to back up the direction. That includes developing local knowledge, allowing local versus central decision-making, analyze, assess options, and act. The pace of the action is key. In a world that's so complex and uncertain, market opportunities can appear and they can disappear quickly. That government can say one thing today and they will change it tomorrow. Did you seize the opportunity while you could? You have to move fast. When are you ready? Jeff has talked often about resiliency with capacity. In this volatile era, things are never perfect. Leaders have to be able to take a punch to get things done and stand apart. And as he says, leaders drive change. And change on day one sometimes has a constituency of just one. So part of courage means you need to be bold. Competition is coming from all corners. If we want to expand and compete in this global economy, then we've got to be able to set ambitious objectives, use global benchmarks, not the guy down the street, and measure yourself against the best in the world. Imagination, we love to say at GE, we also say imagination takes courage. A person who has this great idea, and I say this particularly to the youth in the room, you have the great idea, but lack the courage to express it, to debate it, and fight for it, will not succeed in turning it into something tangible. Finally, taking the action requires collaboration. Leaders connect the dots as far as processing information, but must also connect in other ways by tapping into broad networks of interests and expertise, extending relationships within and outside an organization, across geographies, across cultures. We are getting better at collaborating, but that has to happen globally as well as locally. You can't take advantage of opportunities in a complex world unless you understand the nuances of the world, whether from your people or your potential partners. The chance to work and learn globally is also a huge advantage for anyone aspiring to or in leadership. Exposure to other markets and cultures can by necessity spur collaboration. And when you think of it, when you go to a market, it's not about what you learn about the market you go to. What's most important about going abroad and going to other places is actually what you bring back and the perspectives and the knowledge and the way you behave once you've been there and, in fact, brought that perspective back home again. So what does collaboration look like? It can mean sharing expertise and also sharing risk in new technology, for example, or new markets. It can mean joint ventures and pilots. It can mean working with academia on research and commercialization. It can mean reaching out to know who should be at the table, and then respecting the knowledge and the perspective that everyone brings to the table. We need authenticity when we collaborate. We need to make sure that we have the people around the table because they're the right people, but because we also want to listen and learn from what they have to share with us. All of that is a very powerful combination to accelerate action. When taking action, innovation is one of the most important enablers, and that's what I'll just spend a few more minutes on, and then I promise I'll let you get on with your evening. Innovation in your technology and your business model, it's so critical at any time, more so, even more so when this market is so volatile and dynamic. When things are moving quickly and unpredictably, you need to adjust and react. A culture of innovation and leaders who appreciate and drive it helps you win in these market dynamics. Your solutions depend on your company, industry, and market. Whatever those are, your real deliverable today has to be innovation, a continual ability to do things differently than when you need to. It's about changing the status quo. It's the path to resolving the big issues that are your customers face. And it's not only the outcome, what you produce and sell, but the process, the very way you operate. You know, at GE, we have no doubt that delivering profitable growth demands that we focus on and execute sustained innovation. And I also believe that this is critical to Canada's global competitiveness and our future success. So what do I mean by innovation? You know, so much traditionally, we think of it just as R&D. By making continued investments in tough economic times, we certainly think that R&D is critical. And in fact, making it through those tough times is when it's especially important. Many companies, in fact, cut back on innovation during the downturn, and they're suffering the results of that at this time. But what's the mother of invention? Let me quote Thomas Edison, who's GE's first innovator. He says, "I find out what the world needs, then I proceed to invent it." You know, it starts with market necessity. Last year, we filed about 2,800 patents, and there's a rigor to the process. We work on initiatives that have relevance, they have sponsorship, and there's a path to solving a real market problem. Ideas are aplenty, but the ability to execute on ideas, the art of doing innovation, I think is what really makes the difference. It's not easy. Canada has been slipping in innovation and global competitiveness rankings. We need a genuine desire to integrate innovation into the core of our operations. R&D is part of innovation, but it's only part. It's about what you produce, your policies, how you work, your business models, and the speed with which you're able to respond. In that PwC survey, 2/3 of Canadian CEOs said it was a priority to create an innovation ecosystem for growth. Leaders have a responsibility to make that a reality. Otherwise, will we really achieve that growth? And this can happen, innovation can happen in any setting. Companies of any nature and size with any type of talent. There's a tendency to think that startup companies are driving most of the innovation or that they're positioned to be more nimble. But innovation is a mindset, part of fostering an entrepreneurial culture no matter your size. Gee, we may be a big multinational, but we want to. We're working to see ourselves as entrepreneurial too. We also know we have a role to play in helping smaller companies to scale their innovations, to help get them big. That can happen nationally, globally, which can, of course, be a huge barrier to a lot of smaller companies. In fact, the type of collaboration I talked about is evident in how we incorporate the innovations of other companies, for example, into our supply chain. The way the system works is fantastic, and it's great for the smaller companies and the supply chain companies, and we help and invest in them to grow. And it's also terrific at driving our economy. So we should talk about framing innovation as broadly as possible, and then have the discipline and the direction to operationalize our innovation so that we can get to this dynamic market faster. So in conclusion, over your careers, you've had opportunities to put your own leadership skills into action and to prosper. We have to ensure that the newer generation, so many of them here with us tonight and supported by JA, that they are ready to do the same at a time when volatility demands the right type of leadership and a real focus on innovation. First, in this uncertain environment, we have to talk about what tomorrow's leaders need to succeed. A focus on the externalities in the customer, an ability to think and articulate clearly, the courage to step out, to be bold, and the need to collaborate with authenticity, both internally and externally. And second, making decisions and pursuing market opportunities calls for ingraining innovation in our technologies, in our value offering to the customer, in our culture, and in all our processes, in how we just think and do. That's what we need to drive greater prosperity for our institutions and for our country. I really want to thank you again for this opportunity to be with you. I appreciate it, and I'm so proud to be a part of the evening where we're celebrating such fantastic national leaders. I hope we can look forward to just as impressive contributions from the future business leaders. Thank you very much. Have a great evening.